Well, welcome to the 700 Club. The saga of Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation to the Supreme Court is entering the end game. After weeks of bitter partisan feuding and accusations of sexual misconduct, Senate Republicans are now pressing forward to a vote.
All this after the latest FBI investigation into his behavior as a teenager revealed no new evidence. Now Washington is watching a few key senators who can make or break the nomination. Jennifer Wishon has more from the nation's capital.
The Senate is poised to take a crucial vote this morning to advance Judge Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court. That sets up the possibility of a full Senate vote Saturday. But before that, senators have 30 hours to debate, and both sides have plenty to say. On Capitol Hill, tensions are high. Thursday, police arrested more than 300 people for unlawfully demonstrating. That as senators took turns viewing the FBI's report in a secure location.
So none of these last-minute allegations have been corroborated, as is confirmed by the 7th and latest FBI investigation.
Critics, including former Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens, are now saying Kavanaugh's passionate defense before the Senate shows he doesn't have the right temperament to sit on the court. In what amounts to a closing argument, Judge Kavanaugh penned an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal addressing those concerns. I might have been too emotional at times. I know that my tone was sharp and I said a few things I should not have said. I hope everyone can understand that I was there as a son, husband, and dad. Democrats accused the White House of limiting the FBI investigation, saying it was too narrow and should have included more witnesses.
Democrats agreed that the investigation scope should be limited. We did not agree that the White House should tie the FBI's hands.
Anybody that pushes back on the fact that Dr. Ford wasn't given ample opportunity to make her case and state her case has been living in a cave.
It's now down to a handful of undecided senators on both sides of the aisle. Republicans Jeff Flake and Susan Collins have indicated they're satisfied with the FBI report, but they and fellow Republican Lisa Murkowski have yet to say how they'll vote, nor has Democrat Joe Manchin. At a campaign rally in Minnesota Thursday night, President Trump pointed to new numbers that suggest the Democrats' rage against Kavanaugh is a political misfire.
Their rage-fueled resistance is starting to backfire at a level that nobody has ever seen before.
Just weeks before the midterms, a new NPR PBS poll shows enthusiasm among Democrats and Republicans is in a statistical tie. That's a huge change for the GOP, which lagged 10 points behind Democrats before Kavanaugh's confirmation hearings. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
I think the real casualty in all of this is the Supreme Court. And who is going to stand for nomination for the next vacancy? We know there's going to be a vacancy. So you're going to stand for that vacancy. You're going to be considered by the Senate. And here's what's going to happen to you. They're going to accuse you of being a gang rapist. They're going to accuse you of being a blackout drunk. And then when you get mad about that, they're going to say, well, see, you're intemperate and you shouldn't be on the Supreme Court. This is a nightmare for the country. And the Democrats have already said that this was a delay tactic. They're trying to get it through the midterms so that there's no consideration, there's no vote before the midterms, and they're assuming they're going to win. So this has been a nightmare, and who is now going to stand? That's the casualty here. If the Senate is going to entertain allegations like this and have national hearings on it, who would ever want to go through that, take their families through that? Well, the Kavanaugh nomination has certainly stirred strong emotion on both sides. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Thanks, Gordon. Protesters not only disrupted the confirmation process, they've also been harassing senators in the hallways, forcing Capitol Police to close off areas of the building and to escort lawmakers through public spaces. Still, not all protesters came to show their anger. As Abigail Robertson shows, some came for a very different reason: to pray.
Tensions are high, but civility is low on Capitol Hill ahead of this weekend's vote on Judge Kavanaugh's nomination, leading U.S. Capitol Police to increase security around the Hill. Swing senators like Susan Collins now require police escorts to protect them from being heckled by protesters as well as the media.
You guys really do, invade my comfort zone? It's intense.
Areas the media and public typically walk through with ease have been blocked these past few days. Protesters have also taken over senators' offices and sent rude and often harassing messages to staff members. The bitter back and forth on the Hill led Senator Rand Paul's wife Kelly to write an open letter to Senator Cory Booker, calling on him to retract statements he said in July that she says incite violence.
Go to the Hill today. Get up and please get up in the face of some Congress people.
Perhaps he didn't mean it so literally, but unfortunately, I think there are a lot of people out there who are very angry and maybe unstable, and they take those kinds of words and maybe take it to the next level.
In the past 18 months, she says her family has experienced violence at a horrifying level, like the shooting at her husband's congressional baseball practice and the assault that landed him in the hospital with broken ribs and lung damage. The Pauls were also one of many Senate families whose home address and personal information was recently posted online.
I think we're crossing a line into a really dangerous and disturbing, chapter.
Kelly says in the past 3 months, things have felt a lot worse, and it's hard for her to watch and hear stories of senators and their spouses being harassed in public, like Ted and Heidi Cruz.
Those people were up in their face, waving their middle fingers and just jabbing their fingers in their face and saying horrible things to them. It's really aggressive, it's violent, it's an assault. That is the opposite of making your views known.
In the midst of this chaos, groups are coming to the Capitol to pray.
I don't think we have to pray perfectly. I just think we have to pray. And if we show up, God will do the rest.
Reporting from Capitol Hill, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Thanks, Abby. Jerusalem's mayor announced that he plans to remove the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees from the city, saying the agency promotes incitement against Israel. This comes days after the Palestinian Authority vowed to keep paying terrorists. The PA said financial support to terrorist families will continue despite U.S. cuts over the so-called pay-to-slay issue. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell explains.
The Palestinian Authority says taking care of those who murder Jews is a top priority.
Even if we only have a penny left, it will only be spent on the families of the martyrs and prisoners, and only afterward will it be spent on the rest of the people.
Earlier this year, the United States moved to punish the PA for this policy known as pay to slay. It put the Taylor Force Act into effect, which cuts U.S. aid until the PA stops rewarding terrorists and their families. Australia followed suit in July, but the rest of the world has yet to act.
The international community, first of all, has to recognize that the Palestinian Authority paying salaries to terrorists is really a symptom of the fundamental problem. And that is that the Palestinian Authority sees killing Israelis and killing Jews as something heroic.
Itamar Marcus is the founder and director of Palestinian Media Watch. His organization has monitored reports and speeches from the region for more than 20 years.
The Palestinian Authority has put these killers on a pedestal. They've turned them into heroes and role models for the Palestinian people. By now, they can't even back off. They can't even backtrack. They are going to keep rewarding these killers with money that they're getting, to a large extent, from foreign donors. You've got Abdallah Barghouti, I would say the most notorious Palestinian Authority mastermind of terror. He built the bombs for suicide bombings in Sparrow Restaurant, Zion Square, Hebrew University, killed Americans, killed Europeans, killed altogether 67 people. He's serving 67 life sentences. These are among the 67 people, and he's already also received about $200,000 already, and he will continue receiving salary, eventually receiving $3,500 a month.
The Taylor Force Act is not only a law, but acts as a symbol as well.
We created a special poster in memory of Taylor Force, an American veteran who was murdered in Tel Aviv. The person who killed him was a terrorist named Bassam Mashalcha, who himself was killed right afterward by Israeli forces. So Bassam Mashalcha's family is now rewarded for life. They received Up till now, $13,000.
The 2018 budget for rewarding martyrs' families and wounded is nearly $200 million.
Until the Palestinian Authority changes its ideology and sees murder as murder and sees murder as something punishable, there's no one really to talk to on the Palestinian Authority side.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News.
Thanks, Chris. Gordon, back to you.
Well, I applaud the Congress for finally taking action, passing the Taylor Force Act, and I also applaud the administration for saying we're going to abide by this. It was up to the Secretary of State to withhold those funds, and we need the moral courage to stand up. Years ago, during the Bush administration, they had this was so-called Bush Doctrine, where if states, nation states, supported terrorism, then the U.S. was going to respond. Well, here we have the Palestinian Authority clearly supporting terrorism and clearly doing that for decades. This has been going on a long time under the watch of both Democrat and Republican administrations, where your tax dollars, you look at these payments, and my guesstimate is 1/3 of them was funded by you and me, by the U.S. taxpayer. And you look at that and say, how in the world could we let that go on? But finally, it's stopping. The next step is this UNRWA, the UN Relief Works Agency. The administration, Trump administration, has already moved to stop the funding from the U.S. going to that. But that's another one that encouraged incitement of terrorism against Israel. So finally, the world is waking up. Finally, the funds are being stopped. And now it's up to the Palestinian Authority. If you truly want peace, well, then you truly have to stop terrorism. Well, I've got another news story for you. It's a good one. It's actually good news. In the middle of disasters, Operation Blessing is striking back. New Bern, North Carolina, devastated by Hurricane Florence. More than 4,300 homes were damaged, like Julia McGriff's. Julia tried to salvage what belongings she could, but after a few days, exposure to the mold put Julia in the hospital. Well, that's when Operation Blessing came to her rescue.
When Julia McGriff returned to New Bern, North Carolina after Hurricane Florence, she didn't realize how much damage had been done to her home.
My thought was my house has survived. I could mop up the floors, I could wash down things, and I could stay here.
But she couldn't. The 2 to 3 feet of floodwater had ruined almost everything she owned.
The refrigerator, the stove, my deep freezer, it stopped working completely. Drywall has to be removed. Cabinets has to be removed, the bottom cabinets. I was looking at things that I thought I could keep, and come to find out, you know, even if it dry out, the mold will still be there.
She salvaged a few things and put them in storage. After just a few days, the mold actually landed Julia in the hospital with breathing trouble.
I just wanted to holler and scream.
When she heard about Operation Blessing's disaster relief efforts, and we sent a team out to help, things started to change.
Like a cavalry. They come in ready to work, and they did.
We moved cabinets, took out drywall, and got everything ready for Julia's house to be dried out, so she can eventually move back home without worrying about mold or breathing problems.
It's like kind of a burden been lifted. It just gave me relief. Gave me some relief and happiness, because things are on the way to getting back on track.
Julia wants to make sure others get the same help she got.
Continue your donations, because it is really needed to keep Operation Blessing working, because they don't only do this for us, they do it for every disaster. And the people that's in the disaster really needs that. Thank you all, and thank God for you.
And thank you. If you're a member of the 700 Club, you're part of that. And if you want to give a special gift for the Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund, just give us a call, 1-800-700-7000. You can also write to us at CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. Just put on the memo line of the check, Operation Blessing Disaster Relief, and your gift will go exclusively to disaster relief. We also still need volunteers. These tear-outs and rebuilds, we need a lot of volunteers. So if you want to volunteer, there's a special number for you to call, 1-800-677-7974. If you're from out of town, please register in advance in order to be part of these teams. You can find more information at ob.org.